What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Better Listen Up with Evan J. Thomas podcast. On today's show, I have play-by-play announcer for the New York Mets and others, Mr. Wayne Randazzo, or is it Randazzo?
Randazzo.
Randazzo, what's up, man?
Not too much. How you doing?
Pretty good. So there's a big reason why I pulled you on here today, and obviously we'll get into that, but I want to kind of go over it real quick. So the other day, September 23rd, you made sports history as only the fourth announcer to call a 700th home run in Major League Baseball history, as you called St. Louis Cardinals great and future Hall of Famer Albert Pujols as he smacked number 700 at Dodger Stadium. But before we get to that historic call, got to ask you, what route did you take to get to this point in your career?
A winding one. It's really only the third TV call of a 700th homer. Babe Ruth, I don't think had a TV call. So,
True.
It's so few of those in history, and really lucky to be part of that. But I would never have even predicted that could have even been possible. It was really a winding road to get there, and to have the opportunity at that moment, at that time, and then for Albert to hit 2 home runs in one game to make it happen. It was really, really fortunate, really special to be there for it. And, I couldn't be happier to have that little piece of baseball history alongside Albert Pujols, who, it's his moment and his great achievement, and lucky to just be the person that was in the booth to talk about it at that time.
I mean, it's just amazing. Like you said, it's probably the third TV call that ever happened on a 700th home run. And the fact that you worked for the New York Mets, and obviously it says here others, how did you end up getting that gig for that night? Because obviously it was a Cardinals-Dodgers game. So was it a national game?
Yeah, it was a national game. Apple TV Plus does Friday Night Baseball. They do 2 games every Friday, kind of an East Coast game and a West Coast game, or at least, in some ways, they'll do some of the Central games too. But usually there's an Eastern version and a Western version of the games, and happened to be Cardinals Dodgers that night. I kind of just fell into doing a few Apple games this year because they had an emergency need for an announcer on one of the Mets games that they had earlier this year. So I was able to fill in, do the Mets and Angels on Apple. And then they asked me to do a few others after that, including, the Cardinals Dodgers game on Friday. So it was great to be a part of that, and just really a privilege to be a part of baseball history as it turned out. And lucky that it all worked out to be me in that booth that night.
And how did you get into broadcasting? It's not actually the easiest career path for many people to take. And there's not many jobs out there that you would think that are this high profile. So how did you end up getting into broadcasting?
Yeah, really, it's always something I always wanted to do. I grew up in Chicago, and was a big baseball fan, and loved watching the Cubs games, but playing day games, and the White Sox played usually at night, and 2 different leagues, so I got to see everybody, and really learned baseball that way. And all the Harry Carey was highly influential to me, as his passion and his love of the game burst through the air every single day on WGN. And so that's just what I wanted to do. I just wanted to do what Harry did, and kind of followed that path as I got into school, and went to college to be a sports announcer, and got a minor league baseball job in Mobile, Alabama, and learned how to broadcast baseball down there. And then I worked for the Kane County Cougars for a few years while I was at 670 The Score in Chicago, and just kept at it. And when the Mets had an opening for the pregame and postgame show host role and fill in play-by-play, they kind of needed somebody who knew how to do interviews and knew how to host shows and knew how to do pregame show and a postgame show, which I had done all that stuff. And so I really put myself in a good position to get a job like that. And when the Mets, had that opening, I was lucky to get it. And I thought somebody from New York would get it. I thought they would just hire locally.
But, so?
Yeah, but they didn't. So I got in there, and I'm still I've kind of moved up in the organization there to where I do full-time play-by-play now, and things have been great with the Mets, and I'm happy I'm there.
So I guess Keith Hernandez wasn't available to do play-by-play or anything like that. Actually, he would be more of the color guy than the play-by-play.
Oh yeah, Keith has a job there, and he's really good at it. And so, they needed somebody on the radio side to do pre-game, post-game, and fill in on play-by-play. And I started filling in on TV too a couple of years after that. So I get to work with Keith and Ron sometimes too, and they're awesome.
That's fantastic. And you were just saying you grew up in the Chicagoland area. So growing up watching baseball, were your favorite team, was it the Cubs, Sox, or was it somebody else?
Yeah, big Cubs fan when I was a kid, growing up, and watched every single game. I was religious about it, making sure I could watch every game, and then even as they played during school hours, sometimes just rush home and see the ends of games. So it's a lifelong passion with baseball and being around the game as much as I could be when I was a kid and playing it as a kid, and going to Cubs and White Sox games. Spent a lot of time at Wrigley and even at Comiskey and US Cellular and all that too. Went to plenty of Sox games, and was really able to take advantage of growing up in a city that had two baseball teams, being a huge baseball fan.
So were you like me in the 80s, early 90s when the Cubs season would come to the end? At the time, they basically weren't making the playoffs. I mean, except for like 84. So would you get like upset and cry like I would do at the end of the baseball season? Because I remember doing that.
Yeah, pretty much. I remember 89 was really the first Cubs season that I remember.
Okay.
And 89, they did win the
Giants.
And yeah, they went to the championship series and got killed by the Giants. And it was a pretty devastating moment, watching the Giants knock the Cubs out.
Yeah, Will Clark and Robbie Thompson, man.
Yeah, Robbie Thompson had that big home run. That was my first sports heartbreak, was the 1989 Cubs. So, the ends of baseball seasons were always tough to deal with. I still don't like when baseball season ends, but I'm lucky to be around it every day and be with the Mets from start to finish.
And since now you're in New York and you're going through this 2022 season, and in New York with the Mets in first place, and until my Braves overtake the Mets, and seeing Aaron Judge across town with the Yankees in his pursuit of 61 home runs. I mean, would you say this is the greatest baseball season in New York baseball history?
It could be. They've had some good ones over the years. Plenty of years in the past too, where the Yankees and Giants would play each other in the World Series, and the Yankees and Dodgers. I mean, since the Mets came around, this is certainly the year where the two teams have been the best. I don't think they've had a season where they've played each other in first place. Until this year, they were both in first place playing each other in the Interleague Series. So it's really something to watch as these two teams battle and try to win their divisions, and we'll see if they end up playing each other in the World Series like they did in 2000.
Yeah, I was going to say, I thought they were in the World Series back then too.
Yeah, so it's it's a good time for a New York baseball fan. The Yankees have certainly had their ups and downs this year, and the Mets have been pretty consistent. But they still got to hold on. It's close. It's they're only up a game and a half with 8 to play. The Braves have 9 left, and
they play each other in a 3-game series this weekend.
Yeah. So it's those are going to be huge games, and we'll see which team comes out of it in first place.
I do have to say it's going to be tough for me on the Major League Baseball Network to actually click on the Mets broadcast, but I guess I might have to. Are you on the TV side, or you said the radio side, right?
Yeah, I do radio.
Okay, so then I guess I'll be good listening to Chip Carey for. So I should be okay listening to those games. All right, so since I'm a music guy and you see all the stuff behind me is all music related except for my Notre Dame stuff, so I have to throw in a music related question. So what are your thoughts on the Timmy Trumpet appearance as Nate Diaz came into the game about a month ago or so? And do you think more teams need to bring in musical acts for events like that? Because I loved that whole Timmy Trumpet thing.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. It's a very unbaseball like to have that. Really, you don't see that much in professional sports at all. Boxing and wrestling might have some of that stuff. Live music performances leading their participants in, but MMA maybe, but in baseball, that's very rare and it's something you never see. So it was a fun moment, and the Mets, were happy to do it. And Timmy Trumpet, who's I think from like Australia, was or New Zealand or somewhere, he was extremely excited to be a part of all the hoopla for it. And now that song, Edwin really has made it something that's played in arenas and stadiums everywhere. We've heard it a lot in college football games recently. Other baseball players have it. I'm sure when basketball season rolls around, we'll start to hear it there too. So it's cool that song has taken off, and that Edwin Diaz has been really the number one reason why. It's a great entrance for a closer, and it's right up there with some of the great closer entrances of all time. The closer really has the opportunity, a good dominant closer like Edwin, to have that kind of song, to be known for a song. Rivera had Enter Sandman, and Trevor Hoffman used to have Hell's Bells.
Yep.
Those were just those are cool things, and I'm glad that Edwin has put that song with him and able to make those guys a little bit more famous because of it.
I do have to thank you for correcting me on me calling Edwin Diaz Nate Diaz, who is the boxer or the MMA fighter. So I know I said Nate because it's right here in my notes, so that's my bad. But Edwin Diaz is who the Timmy Trumpet came out and did his intro to. All right. So did you have the 700th home run call scripted, or was it off the cuff? Like you said, there was already one home run by Pujols in the game. So he was coming into the game with 698. You were probably not expecting 2 home runs from Pujols. So
not until he hit the first one was I expecting the second one. I after he hit the first one, I believed he was going to hit the second one that night as well. So I was ready for it anyway going in, just in case. I didn't want to script anything. I wanted to just react to the moment. You don't know what kind of home run it's going to be. It could be a low line drive like Mark McGwire's 60-second.
I was just going to say it was very similar to that.
Yeah. I mean, it's like a little higher trajectory, but McGwire's was just a line drive. It could be a weird home run that it's a foul pole. Maybe it's the one that bounces off somebody's glove and goes out. You never know what's going to happen. So you have to be ready to react to what does happen. So scripting yourself, I think, kind of really limits you as to how you react to a call. So, I was just completely focused and locked in on reacting to what happened. The only thing I wanted to do was I wanted to say 700 right away, and I wanted to anoint him into the 700 home run club. Those were the two things I wanted to make sure I said, regardless of what kind of home run it was. So, those things kind of came in with the call. And then the rest of it, I just wanted to let the pictures and the reactions tell the story, which they did.
Which they did. And would you say that the Dodgers pitcher grooved that one into Pujols?
No, I would not. Absolutely
no, because that thing was inside and low, and he just turned on it, man. Holy
not a pitch that he normally hits. The first home run, the 699, was a home run that is one that he usually hits off a lefty, a fastball that the guy spot, and that was just perfect for Pujols. The other one wasn't. It was not a pitch he normally hits out. So
it was off a righty too, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a righty. Yeah. It was a side and a bit low. And yeah, you're right. Even it's not a typical. He likes the ball kind of away and over the middle of the play, and that one wasn't.
High up a little bit too.
Yeah, and that one didn't have any of those qualities. That's how locked in he was, and that's why I thought once he hit 699, it seemed like 700 was absolutely next.
See, and I was in St. Louis 3 weeks ago for the Braves Cardinals, and he was still stuck at 693. So he was still 7 away up until 3 weeks ago. So that's awesome that he got it this year, because they were already saying, would he come back for another season just to get to those 700? And now I've heard little rumors. I don't think it's true, but A-Rod possibly coming back for his last few to just get to 700. I'm like, that would be cheesy as hell if he ever came back and did that. So hopefully he does.
I don't think Alex is going to do that. I'm not sure he could even pull it off at this point. He's been out of it for quite a while.
Well, not just out of it, but who would want to pay him and for how long? I mean, he basically come in as a sideshow. So
yeah,
and I mean, it's not like he wasn't a sideshow for his last 15 years anyway.
Right. Now, I don't think that'll happen. But Albert really did go on quite a tear in the second half of the season to get to it, and I don't think he would have come back if he would have fallen short. I think this was going to be it no matter what, and that he got there really is a great story.
And has it hit you that you were one of only 4 announcers ever to call a 700th home run? I mean, is it like all of a sudden you'll think back and you're like, I'm going to be that guy that's immortalized forever on this call?
Yeah, it's pretty. I mean, it's really neat. It's really just very humbling to be associated with that call in that way. Something I never would have predicted would have happened. But I'm glad that I was the person in that chair at that time. I hope I did it justice to the fans who cared about it, and that we'll hear it moving forward. And just an honor to be there and tag along on Albert's big moment. So just really really fortunate that it was in the right place at the right time, and I tried to give it the best call that I could to match the moment, because it's a great moment in baseball history, and 700 home runs. Who even knows when the next guy is going to do it? It could be decades from
I was
now.
going to say, I don't even know anybody who's even remotely close.
Nobody is. Nobody. Giancarlo Stanton was on a good run for a while, but
Yeah.
yeah, gotten hurt. Judge is too old probably to get
Yeah, because he's
that
30.
name.
So
Yeah. So, you about young players like Julio Rodriguez or Fernando Tatis Jr., guys like that, Soto, they're still at the beginnings of
Acuna, if he was healthy.
yeah, guys like
Stay
that.
healthy.
But that's 20 years away even for those guys.
Yeah.
So, it's going to be a long time before somebody gets 700 again.
And the fact that you and I were Facebook friends for so long, it's kind of crazy that I know the guy who called that. So there you go. And that's why you're here. I reached out from nowhere. I mean, I think I've been following you for we've been Facebook friends for a decade.
Yeah.
All of a sudden I looked, I'm like, I have never actually reached out to you until the other day. So pretty cool. I can get you on the show too. That's pretty sweet.
Yeah, awesome, man. Thanks for having me.
And I got one more for you. So, who are your sports hero announcers that you would have on your Mount Rushmore of announcers? I know you mentioned Harry Carey, so I'm figuring he's probably in there. Do you have 3 other ones, or is he part of that?
Harry's number one. I just love the way that Harry's enthusiasm and really his pairing with Steve Stone. And Stoney's still a big part of Chicago baseball with the White Sox, and that's great to see that he's had such longevity as what I think is the best baseball analyst out there. You learn so much watching the games from Steve Stone. I love Pat Hughes on Cubs radio. He still has such a great voice, and he's someone that I always admired. And I feel like if you listen to me on the radio, you'll hear some Pat. You'll definitely hear his influence on me. If you listen closely to how I broadcast a game, Vince Scully and I really like Joe Buck on baseball, and
I was just gonna say you have 3 of my 4 so far, so there's
Buck,
that.
Buck is not doing baseball anymore, which I think is not. The baseball community is going to miss not having him, but Joe Davis is going to do a fantastic job on the World Series this year, and it's going to be good for the game that Joe is the one taking over for Joe Buck. But Bob Costas, just guys like that who have stood out over the years, that you admire, and being around the Mets broadcasters, Howie Rose and Gary Cohen, they've taught me so much, whether it's been directly answering my questions or saying something to me out of the blue or mentoring me in some way, or just me watching them and how they go about how they do their jobs. They're really wonderful at what they do. And I've been lucky to be around Howie and Gary, and I've learned a million things and more from those guys over the last several years.
That is so cool that just doing what you do and being able to just see what you're experiencing over the last decade or so doing Major League Baseball and what you have coming up. I mean, you already have the baseball playoffs coming up. I'm not sure what you're doing elsewhere. I know you were saying you're doing some of the other TV stuff as well, so that's really cool as well. So what else do you have coming up for, what you have this fall or next year?
Yeah, I'm sure I do some college stuff for the Big Ten Network. I'm sure you'll see me on college basketball some, and that'll be good. And whatever else in the off season, try to relax a little bit too to get ready for the next season. And hopefully I'll do some more of those Friday night baseball games on Apple next year, and we'll see. We'll see what the next chapter brings. But it's been a great season following the Mets, and they've got with a tunnel vision right now on what's ahead this weekend in Atlanta for them, and then the postseason. So it's going to be a fun October coming up.
Sure will. And Wayne, man, I really appreciate you jumping on with me today. Like I said, it was a quick turnaround to get you on here, but the fact that I got you on was fantastic. Again, Wayne Randazzo, the play-by-play announcer for the New York Mets, and others joining me right now. Where can we follow you on the socials if you want to give them out?
Yeah, no, just my name, just at Wayne Randazzo, Twitter and Instagram and wherever else. So I appreciate your time, Evan. Thanks a lot for having me.
Dude, appreciate it. And by the way, go Braves. Chop on. Later, man. Appreciate it.
All right.